Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching this Fox News affiliate right here. You can find us on television, syndicated on Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. You can also find us all over social media. Wherever there's social media, we are there. We're going to go ahead and carry that torch because we believe in the conservative way. Speaking of the conservative way, my very good friend Don Brown, he's an attorney, he's an author, he's a speaker, and he's running for U.S. Senate. He's out of North Carolina. Welcome back to the show, Don.
Good to be back, Donna, and thanks for having me again.
Oh, always. Now, it's hard to catch you because you are all over the place spreading the good news about what North Carolina and the rest of the country could be like.
Well, we're doing the best we can, Don. I hope somebody's out there listening. I hope we're getting some good seed falling on fertile soil. We'll have to see how it goes.
I think you are. I wanted to have you on to talk about the Big Beautiful Bill. And so what your thoughts are on that. I'm inundated by emails now with people who are either concerned about it, they love it. Most people don't know. What kind of light can you shed?
Well, it was necessary because the Democrats have put the country in such a vulnerable position that our national security was being threatened. Yeah. No conservative likes the amount of money being spent on it. I've been assured by our local congressman, my friend here, Mark Harris, that a rescission bill is on the backside to try to implement more of the DOGE cuts. But I want you to know there are three major areas the bill covers that have been absolutely necessary, both for national security and to ensure that the economy doesn't blow up. The first is the extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts to make them permanent. Those would have sunset, and we would go back to Obama-era tax rates, which would have blown the economy up, in a bad way. And so that's the first thing. So we are guaranteed a protection of the continued lower tax rate that President Trump implemented in his first term, in which the Democrats even benefited from during the 4 years of the Biden disastrous nightmare. Second thing is border security. We have funds to now finally complete the border wall and to shore up ICE activities. And that is something that, the disaster at the border has been a national security, time bomb. Especially ever since the Biden came in and just opened the borders wide open. We think we've got, nobody knows for sure, but around 20 million illegals that crossed over. We have no idea how many of those are peaceful or otherwise. We know that there are a number of violent illegals that have come across. The Mexican warlords and gang members have been very involved in the border, especially around the Rio Grande River and coming into, Arizona and even in California with human trafficking and, of course, fentanyl importation. And as I've mentioned on a number of times, we lost 58,000 men and women in the Vietnam War. We lost more Americans to fentanyl in 1 year than we did in 10 years in the Vietnam War. Matter of fact, about 3 or 4 years ago, the FBI commandeered a tractor trailer in Arizona with enough fentanyl in it to kill the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's how deadly this stuff is. So the border, we had an invasion at the border, and the second component of the Big Beautiful Bill is going to deal with that. Now, there are many other aspects as well. We're defunding Planned Parenthood. We're doing a lot of great things, but from another big picture standpoint, as the next naval officer, I've been concerned for some time about the slippage of our Navy in terms of the number of ships that we've lost. The Chinese Navy now has the largest Navy in the world. Our guys are very good. We have, these 10 or so carrier task force that are very good, but is going to engage in a massive shipbuilding program to try to make up the damage the Democrats have caused by neglecting the U.S. Navy. And so in those three areas, those are areas of important national concern. The president also is finally going to try to put in a missile defense system for the United States. We've seen with the numerous missile attacks in Israel what our Patriot missiles alone are capable of doing. But the sad fact of the matter is we don't have that type of system in the United States in the event that we were, that if missile attack were launched. President Reagan wanted to do it. He called it Star Wars back in the 1980s. Democrats laughed at him. The big, beautiful bill will finally bring that component in there. The problem, of course, is the spending, and we've got to attack that as we move forward in the future. I'm trusting that Congress and Mike Johnson and those are going to be able to come in with this rescission bill that Mark Harris has talked to me about. But you have to kind of balance the good against the not good, and the positives outweigh the negatives at this particular point in time. Having said that, you've heard me say over and over again, we've got to get the national debt under control. It in and of itself is a ticking time bomb. But now that these national security measures that I've talked about have been put into place, our focus has to be to eliminate unnecessary agencies, not just the Department of Education, but the IRS and many others that need to go and just totally be eliminated. And all that savings is going to have to be applied to the national debt. So it's a great start in the right direction. When every Democrat votes against it, that tells you something, Donna, and every Democrat votes against it. So that is, they're united, you're unified against it. And so that tells you it's got to be good.
Oh, it's got to be good. We wouldn't be in this situation had it not been to the previous administration. And what this reminds me of is a good company that went bad because they hired the wrong CEO. They fired that CEO. Now the good one comes in and he's having to go through all this bull just to get everything back together again. And that's what Trump's going through right now. He's making some decisions that sound bad until you analyze them, like you just did.
Well, right, and again, he cleaned up. I understand that the Biden administration had put this country on the verge of collapse. I mean, if Kamala, by some outrageous and atrocious and unimaginable nightmare, had wound up in the White House, we probably would lose the Republic, certainly lose constitutional protections. It would have been a disaster beyond any imaginable disaster. And so, even in the three areas I just outlined between extending the tax cuts and making them permanent, the necessity for closing the border permanently, and in my opinion, I'm just, building the Navy back up. We're a maritime nation. Those are national security issues. Plus, missile defense is a national security issue. And there are other things that still are going to have to be done through the remainder of the Trump administration and into the Vance administration. We've got to have protection against EMP attack. We've got to solidify our power grid. We've got a lot of things we've got to do that have been neglected because the Democrats have been so obsessed on the welfare state and just throwing money away and just cycling money through these NGOs and cycling them back and forth. It's been a real criminal enterprise what they've done. The deep state is a criminal enterprise, and the Democrats and some Republicans too. I'll call Republicans out. I've been a part of it.
I wanted to go a little bit, and all 3 points are incredible, but I really wanted to talk to you about security. Okay, so remember we were living in Alabama. The next little town up about 10 miles from us was inundated by Haitians. They were everywhere. They were taking over just streets. I mean, you would think you were in a third world country in this little town. A recent report, and this was about crime rate in cities all over the United States. Albertville, Alabama was above the national average. This was unheard of 10 years ago. You would not believe this is the same town. Now, it looks on the surface, because we have liberals in the city council and in the mayor seat right now, you would think from the outside looking in, it's doing great because there are businesses coming up all over the place. However, people feel unsecure. And I told my mother and her friend would go shopping all the time, stay out late, and I begged them to come home before daylight. And I would say, y'all don't know everything that's happening in this little town. So the next town over, Boaz, Alabama, guess what's happened out of there? They've actually stopped, or they think they have, a prostitution ring. And that little town, Don, you would have to know those areas I knew growing up. That was totally unheard of until the Biden administration came in.
Well, right. And Donna, the thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, we may have 20 million illegals, and a number of them are involved in criminal enterprises and rings. And it wasn't always that way. I mean, and illegal isn't illegal, but some are peaceful and good people. Others are involved in criminal enterprise. When the Biden administration opened the borders, they basically encouraged criminal prostitution from across the border. They basically encouraged the importation of fentanyl. They basically encouraged child sex trafficking. It's big money for organized crime. You know, if the Biden administration had not done that, we would still have an illegal alien problem, but not like we have now, because it's turned into a criminal enterprise problem. I mean, every illegal alien is broken the law of the United States, but not everyone is harmful. But they have created a harmful criminal enterprise. You're looking at MS-13. You're looking at these gangs in Mexico, and our U.S. military is going to destroy those. By the way, if they don't get their act together under President Trump, they will be destroyed, just like Iran's nuclear program was destroyed. So they better watch themselves. But they created the problem, Donna. So what you're experiencing in Alabama is a product of wide open borders, so wide open that you've invited underground criminal enterprises, the Mexican mafia, and other countries to participate in crossing the border for profit. And that is solely, on the hands of the Democrats and the Biden administration.
It's definitely on their hands.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, because, like I said before, when I was growing up, these were Mayberry towns.
Right.
I mean, they were just and not that recent. I mean, I'm telling you that this has been happening. I think it's a thought out plan to bring down the country, and a lot of folks went on with it. Now, I'll have to tell you this too about the mayor and the city council members. I've ticked off a whole bunch of people about this, but it's the truth. These folks are in real estate. I'm thinking the double dipping. I'm thinking they probably made money on the sale of them renting out their homes that they have for rent, that kind of thing. And then also a lot of money has been brought in. But what good is that money brought in if you're having to spend it to get rid of prostitution rings, to get rid of theft? I mean, that's one of the reasons we moved right back to the Carolinas. We wanted to be back here.
Right, yeah, right. Well, yeah, I mean, you bring the extra money in, but then you've got to spend it on security. You're living in a situation that is more dangerous. You know, you're in a worse situation than you were before. So, you're going to be okay there in South Carolina for a while. So,
station alert.
For a while.
I'm here to stay. I love it. And I'll have to say this, no state is perfect. I mean, they're going to be libs hanging around somewhere. But I'm just telling you, as overall, folks right here will fight you. I mean, they'll fight you if you come in illegal here. I mean, not fist fight, but they're going to fight against that program.
Right. Precisely.
And they're wonderful folks. But again, security is one of the biggest. That's what I get emails about continuously. People are concerned. This is another thing. And here I'm picking on that mayor again. He's running for re-election. What I'm noticing, and you have to really you have to notice things that are not obvious. So in all of his Facebook posts, what I'm seeing is he may have he doesn't have as many people watching him as I do, apparently. So he have 200 people who watched it, but there are maybe 2 responses. That makes no sense to me. I think what he's doing, and they're only good responses, by the way, he's eliminating the ones who are telling it like it is.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. So, he's only going to want you to see what you want to see. He's probably doing a lot of eliminating, to tell you the truth. So, he ought to have the guts to leave all the responses up, especially if he's a public figure. But,
I would. One of my wonderful sponsors, Bobby Ledbetter with Twin City Used Car Sales, had a bad response one time that I know of. And I brought it to his attention because he and I are just really good buddies, and I look out for him. He looks out for me. We just have that friendship. And so I just mentioned it to him. It was on his Facebook page. Well, it tore him to pieces. And he said, because he takes good care of his customers. And I said, Bobby, is somebody, because I looked, they give everybody a bad review. I said, I've just noticed that from that person. He said, do I need to eliminate it? And I said, no, you need to respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's going to be, because they will keep putting those posts up. Those people will, unless you face it. So he faced it. It was the best thing he could have done.
Right.
So, if you're not guilty of something, go on ahead and respond to it. The way I look at it. So we're talking security. Let's talk money wise, because it's no longer happening in Detroit. It's no longer happening in just Chicago, New York. it's happening in our small towns. And I'm picking on Alabama right now because I lived there for a very long time and I'm from that area. And it's heartbreaking, the things that are happening. You and I have talked about Fort Payne, Alabama was once the sock capital of the world. They really were. They had it going on in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s. There were little cottage businesses all over the place, and that little town was flourishing. And then Clinton comes in.
Right. Well, Clinton comes in, of course, there are three monumental, disastrous pieces of legislation or governmental executive action taken by Clinton. One was NAFTA. The second one was the putting the U.S. in the World Trade Organization. The third was granting communist China most favored nation status. In other words, you basically created and put your chief economic competitor on steroids against you, and it was done in large part because the globalist corporations and the Democrat administration wanted to sweep American jobs out the window and replace them with cheap labor overseas. Mm-hmm. And they got their way, and I've been on the campaign trail, and here in North Carolina, we basically lost what you mentioned the sock industry there, the sock capital. In Alabama. North Carolina was the textile capital of the world. We still have some, but not like it was, virtually gone. When I came back to the area, got out of the Navy, our largest client we represented was a company called Springs Industries. There's still a corporation called Springs Industries, but there were multiple textile plants all over North and South Carolina, gone. And I was in Cabarrus County a couple of months ago campaigning, and I asked, where's our textile industry? The furniture, and this is another one that's taken a huge hit in North Carolina, right? Because of these three actions by the Democrats, primarily NAFTA. And I'm asking for South County, and High Point, where's the furniture industry? Pulp and paper is another one that's taken a hit. I mean, I'm from a little town called Plymouth, North Carolina. We had you're talking about the sock factory there. We had a large Weyerhaeuser pulp and paper and plywood plant there that employed about 3,500 people. Is significant when you have a town with a population of about 5,000 altogether. Very significant. And you had cottage industries growing from that. Well, today they employ about 1/10 of that, about 350, because those jobs have been transferred overseas. This was the work of the Democrats and the globalists, with the complicit cooperation of some Republicans as well. So I'm not one of these that will never criticize the Republican Party when it needs it. I certainly will. But this is part of the globalist push that the elites have been behind now for quite some time. You saw it in the Bush 41, Bush 43. You saw it in the Clinton administration, the Obama administration. The only America First presidents in my lifetime, I believe, were John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, and Donald Trump. Those are the only ones at the top of the executive branch who really wanted to put the country first. Everybody else is, Bush 41's New World Order that he famously talked about, or 1,000 points light, whatever that stuff means.
It raised my eyebrows there.
Right. And of course it was in the Clinton administration is where the massive sweep of American jobs started. And I've said often, isn't it interesting? He creates China as an economic superpower by granting them most favored trade nation status, and making part of the World Trade Organization, and then so much of the money funding the Clinton Foundation comes from China. Isn't it funny the way that works? But it appears to be a corrupt cabal, as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. Another thing to pay attention to is, okay, now I'm living in South Carolina. And as far as South Carolina is concerned, there are only two football teams. That's Clemson and South Carolina, and that is it. You never see one. No, it's a friendly competition with most people. Some want to get into a fight, but for the most part, it's a lot of fun. And people say, now, which one are you going to be for, Donna? And I'm going, I don't know yet. I got to test it out first. I got to test the water. So, but the point being is, you're not going to watch a South Carolina fan promote a Clemson team. I mean, they're just not going to do that. And Clemson's not going to promote South Carolina either. But that's been happening the past few administrations, is they go in, they want to promote China for some reason. Why would you promote any other country on earth other than your own country?
Well, you're asking all the right questions. By the way, in your former state of Alabama, it'll be like an Auburn fan promoting Alabama or vice versa.
Yeah, well, I'm the Auburn field, field is Alabama.
Right. So you wouldn't promote Alabama. But look, here's the thing about it. they're getting their pockets lined. That's the only answer to the question. I mean, go back to my point about the Clinton Foundation. They're getting money in to their PACs from these special interest groups, and they're basically putting personal greed and personal profit to the country. So that's the only reason you would do that, and it needs to be exposed and it needs to be busted. But this globalism is being pushed by a small group of elitists that are interested in personal gain, personal wealth. To heck with the United States, to heck with our Constitution, to heck with the Republic. They don't care about that. So that's why we're in a situation where that's why the president has had to resort to tariffs, because it's gotten so bad. Now, I've said, and you and I both agree, that the income tax needs to be eliminated. That includes the personal and the corporate tax. Now, if you eliminate corporate taxes, these industries that I just mentioned in North Carolina alone, between textiles and furniture and even pulp and paper to a lesser degree, they'll come flying back in the nation so fast to make your head spin if you eliminate the corporate income tax. And of course, as I pointed out on a number of occasions in a number of interviews, from 1880 to 1913, during a time when we, were operating off tariffs, but also during a time that was the greatest industrial explosion in American history, there was zero income tax. We had some problems in the workplace that can be taken care of, but it's got nothing to do with taxes. Zero income tax. And if we did it once, we can do it again. But until we really get serious about attacking the problem is not going to go away. We got to get serious about attacking it.
Let's talk about the state of North Carolina here for just a few minutes, because, cottage businesses were the turn of the 19th century, they were the biggie. I mean, these were technical jobs, basically. Everybody had a trade. You had your butcher, your baker, and your candlestick maker, but they were successful businesses before, the government gets involved in it. They were successful. There would be family, just, taking on family from generations to generations. And that was the way we made the world turn. That's the way the economy got on the good. Why has this whole idea about, let's get rid of the small business person and only let the big conglomerates take over? And I'm going to use COVID for an example. So COVID hits, Walmart can sell clothes, but Susie's dress shop had to be closed.
Well, here's the thing, and I've said this, big is bad, whether it's big government, or the bigger a business gets, the worse also. What they want to do is they want to monopolize the market for greed and power, and to put out small businesses. And the problem is when you put those businesses out, you reduce competition that hurts everybody. So I've given the example before. I mean, I think I showed you the example. My little cell phone here I've got. And my son, he was in Afghanistan. I was able to call him when he was in Afghanistan in the Army and talk to him via Facebook Messenger or whatever else, WhatsApp Messenger, and just talk to him. And it was not costing anything at all to do that. It was not costing anything at all to do that. And but my dad used to get on me when I was in college for running up a $50 phone bill for a 30-minute telephone call from Chapel Hill to Plymouth, North Carolina. What's the difference? The difference is Ma Bell got busted up. When Ma Bell got busted up, smaller companies came in and offered competition, and we got superior technology at lower cost. And that is the whole idea that was behind the Sherman Antitrust Act, that was signed into law at the turn of the century. Most big businesses were operating as trust, but you're seeing, what you're seeing with the example used with Walmart earlier, when they start getting big like that, the Democrats like it. Why do Democrats like it? Because of corporatism. What do I mean by that? When you have an excuse to put people under your thumb, like COVID, and you only got 4 or 5 companies out there that provide all the goods and services to everybody, you as the government put your pressure on those companies, whether it's Bank of America, whoever else, to force people to take jabs and wear masks. And so it's a power thing. So it was Mussolini that said corporatism, that is the government using big corporations to carry out their commands and instructions. He said corporatism is the bedrock of fascism. And so it's a power grab and it's a money grab to answer your question. I favor busting up, large conglomerates. I think we ought to bust up Blue Cross Blue Shield. I think we ought to bust up these big insurance companies under antitrust, just like we ought to bust up big government. because freedom is allowed to exist in the absence of totalitarianism, whether it's governmental totalitarianism or corporate totalitarianism. Big is bad. And the sooner, I would like to see the antitrust boom taken to, to all these social media companies, but also these big health companies. And Congress has got to get, these big health insurance companies out of the way so that we can bring the cost of healthcare down. I mean, if you had, you and I, we can go out and shop our auto insurance to a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen different companies and get competitive rates. We can't do that with health insurance. It's time to modernize the way we're approaching the health insurance industry, and we need to bring I think we need to bring the antitrust boom to some of these big corporations, including some of these big banks, by the way.
Let's talk about the facade on the faces of Democrats and some Republicans, not including you, but I'm talking about, they put on this persona like, we love the little guy. But the little guy during COVID is the one who got bashed. How many businesses were lost?
Well,
I mean, there's an incredible amount of businesses because they couldn't stay open. A small mom and pop could not accommodate, the distance, the people. I mean, you've got to have room. Well, the big guys were able to take over.
Right. Well, I was on Newsmax just before I came on with you, and this very issue came up about North Carolina. I made the point. You look at Roy Cooper, he shuts the state down with COVID, tells people their jobs are not essential. What does that do to somebody's self-esteem just to do that? And as I pointed out, we lost, by some estimates, at least, if not more than 50% of restaurants in North Carolina because of these unconstitutional mandates. Mm-hmm. This is governmental control from the top down. And for them, it's about wanting control. It's all about wanting control. Mm-hmm. Because when they exert control over you, then they have more power for themselves. They can also are able to take your resources away. This is what we're dealing with. So it goes back. It's as old as the hills. It goes back to greed and totalitarianism in the corporate world and totalitarianism in the governmental world, with a small number wanting to exert more power and to take what resources and freedom we have away.
Well, I just want someone to explain that to me, how that is actually, how they're really on the little guy's side. It does not sound like they're on the little guy's side to me.
No, come in. They go into office. Look at Joe Biden. It's supposed to be the guy from Scranton. It's supposed to be for the steel worker. The dude comes in and becomes multi-millionaire. These Democrats that talk about wanting to be for a little guy, when are they going to take their money and give it all away? Even Teddy Kennedy, was he going to give his money all the way? You just look at them. They become millionaires and billionaires, and they pay lip service to the little guy on the one hand, but on the other hand, use a jack-booted, a steel-toed boot to try to crush the little guy. And when you take away small businesses, you're crushing the little guy. You're taking away, small businesses. You're doing that in many ways, because then, if you got Bank of America and Wells Fargo and just a handful of banks under the government's thumb, it's like, I think it was Rockefeller or Carnegie, one or the other, that said, I don't care, what laws you pass, as long as I've got control of the nation's money, you can pass whatever law you want to pass. And that's really what they've done, or they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. They're trying. But they've got folks like you running for office, so that's going to stop. Let's go on. Before we go into the break, how can folks respond to you? How can actually folks help you, fund you?
Well, right. Thank you, Don. Please go to brown4nc.com. That's BROWNFORNC.com, and go in there and click this donate button. We're grateful for anything we can get. We're fighting big money. We're fighting the types of people you're talking about that want to keep the working guy, under their boot. And so we need all the help we can get. You can give up to $3,500 a person. We know that not everybody can do that, but we'll take whatever we can get. 5, 10, 15, 20, 100, 300, 500, 1,000, whatever you can do, we're grateful for. And it's going to take that in order to pull this win out. We can do it if we raise the money. And we've raised some money. We've got a long way to go. We're still, the primary is in March. So we've got a number of months left, and the election is a year from November. We have some time left, but time is of the essence at this point. So thank you so much. Brown4NC, BROWNFORNC.com. Love to hear from everybody.
There you go. Let's go to a break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you again so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone, as we get to ride home with you in the afternoon. It's always so much fun. And continue sending emails and just make my day. I'm just telling you, this old country girl right here loves those emails. Donna at donnasedge.com. Donna at donnasedge.com. A lot of you have been sending emails because election season is going to be here before we know it. And I think people are getting wiser, Don, about, only voting in the presidential election, only voting in that one. It does make a difference. It makes a difference. You need to check on everybody. Okay, your city council, your mayors, you need to check on everybody who's running for office. There's another little small town. I'm picking on Alabama today. And this little small town is about 10 miles north of where I was living. And there's a guy running for mayor. All you got to do is check out his Facebook page. He's a liberal, but he's trying to act like he's on the conservative side. And you can guess who he is, guys. If you're in Alabama and you're watching me right now, check his wife's Facebook page. Now, I know you can't help what your spouse does. Poor Phil has to contend with me all the time. But what I'm talking about, it matters. It matters on the small town as well as the national, like Don Brown is running national U.S. Senate. But the point is this, you better check out your candidate. Check out their Facebook page. See if there, I mean, this woman, his wife is trashing Trump. She's been trashing Trump for months. She's a high-strung liberal, and she's in the educational system. So let's talk about the educational system right now. It's broken, Don. It's broken.
Well, it is broken, and it's been basically a disaster since the federal government began to actively immerse itself in it. Even before the disastrous Department of Education was founded and rammed down our throats by Jimmy Carter in 1980, just before Reagan came into office, there was HEW, Health, Education, and Welfare. Remember Joseph Califano? He was a disaster. He was the HEW Secretary under Carter. And it goes back to these ESEA, education acts, so-called education acts in the 60s and 70s, where the federal government would start dangling money in front of the states to try to force curriculum down the throats of American school children. And, you made a point earlier, Donna, about this mayoral race in Alabama. And, Tip O'Neill did say one thing that made sense. He said all politics is local. Don't say I won't quote a Democrat if the quote's good. But there's truth to that. That means the control of our lives is at the local level, whether it's this mayoral race in Alabama you're talking about or the school board races. I'm coming to you from Wilmington, North Carolina this morning, where we've been out on the campaign trail the last couple of days, but I live in Union County, which is right beside Charlotte, but Mecklenburg County. The Union County School Board during COVID, headed by my friend Melissa Merrill, who's now the chair of the Union County Commissioners, that school board stood up to Roy Cooper. I apologize about my computer. My phone's talking to me out of the blue. That school board stood up to the totalitarian Democrat governor and Mandy Cohen, who was running these COVID mask programs, and refused to back down. There's another young lady from here in Wilmington, Morgan Wallace, who is a nurse practitioner, who stood up to New Hanover County School Board about their mask mandates and their vax mandates. So it's all local, and that goes to school control as well. School control should be local, not controlled by the state or by Washington. And when Washington began to try to control the schools, our testing has dropped precipitously, even since the formation of the Department of Education, which is an oxymoron. I'm relatively speaking, I guess I'm kind of an educated guy. I've joked around I can speak a little Russian with a redneck accent, and I can with a redneck. But no bureaucrat from Washington, D.C. ever taught me one word of Russian or one word of French or anything about history. And so this is why when the president's come in, and by the way, there's a great Supreme Court win just this week in which the Supreme Court struck down the liberals' attempt to prevent the administration from ordering agencies to slim down. They will be back. The Democrats will with lawfare. But the president is trying to gut the Department of Education, but Congress has to end it. And so the only way to improve education in this nation, it goes back to a point that I may have made in another segment. Big is bad. And like I said, whether it's Ma Bell being too big, you bust it up, and now we've got competition. You and I, we're having this conversation today on TV basically because it's a result of the busting up of Ma Bell. But it's also true, with education, because the smaller the classroom, the more local control there is for classrooms, the better the quality of education is going to be. Our slippage as a nation in national testing against the so-called Pacific Rim countries, by that I mean South Korea, and Taiwan, and Malaysia, and all these, and even China, and all these countries, we have slipped because of the top-down control of the educational process. It's interesting. This is kind of an aside, but the principle is the same. I was talking to a Navy captain buddy of mine who this week, he said that he had played golf with a couple of Coast Guard officers at the Army Navy Club in Arlington, and the officers were about to get out. They said that during the Biden years, that the Biden was pushing DEI far above the operational mission of the Coast Guard. By analogy, it's been the same with education. They pushed DEI and social experimentation and woke ideology far more than they should have been pushed, and have neglected math and science and history. And with Common Core, which the Obama administration was trying to push through, and Department of Education was dangling billions in front of local school districts and states to adopt Common Core before the curriculum was even finished. Hey, we'll give you the money. We'll give you the money, but you got to take this unknown curriculum. That curriculum did two things that were particularly disastrous. Number one, there was a math standard and the language arts standards that were trying to ram these down people's throats. The math standards would have lowered the national median for mathematics to pre-calculus in the 12th grade. Rather than calculus in the 12th grade, you wouldn't be able to take calculus so you got to college, which pushes us down below these Pacific Rim nations. And on the language arts side, they were replacing Shakespeare and Dickens with all kinds of governmental propaganda and prurient and sexually exploitive reading materials. It was garbage. And so the Gates Foundation was pushing Common Core at the time. And there was a working group in Washington coming up with this curriculum. There were only 2 college educators heading the group. There were a lot of high school and secondary teachers. But the mathematics guy was a guy named James Milgram, who was a Stanford mathematician who'd been involved in the Apollo moon shot and the Saturn V program. He resigned from the working group when he realized what it was doing to mathematics. And the language arts program was headed initially by a professor named Sandy Stosky from the University of Arkansas. When she saw what was happening with the proposed garbage in the language arts, she resigned also. This is a long answer to a short question, but governmental interference and NGO interference. The Gates Foundation should have no involvement in how we do our schools in this country. What we need private schools, we need homeschools, we need Christian schools, we need public schools. We need them all working together. We don't need a monopolistic educational apparatus run by the NEA or by the federal government. So we got to bust up education so that there are more opportunities for more people to see different means of education, different schools,
Well, and to think I went to pieces when my son was in school in the 1990s and he comes home with a note saying he has to have a calculator. I went to pieces over that because when I was going to school back in the 1970s, our teacher, Dr. Runyon, by the way, I was very skilled in math. I got to represent the school in the math contest, and that was a lot of fun. But and I was really shy, too. I didn't want to win. As a matter of fact, I told Dr. Runyon to let somebody else do it because I couldn't get in front of a crowd. But anyway, I remember him saying, if I see anyone in class with a calculator, you're going to be reprimanded. I mean, you are going to lose some time in school. You're going to have some time off. And so to me, it was like, it was a shot. It was a shot in the student's head that they had to bring a calculator to school for math. I never saw that. I still never saw it. So I get Brad out of there, and Brad starts going to a Christian private school at that point. And I'm glad I did it. It cost some money, but I'm glad I did that. So let's talk a little bit about homeschoolers. Are there any grants that you think could be available to help those folks? Not necessarily they need the help. I mean, the smartest kids you're going to see are the homeschoolings.
Well, a couple of things. One, you get rid of the federal income tax and you return all the money to the states, and then you let the states individually make decision on governmental grants for homeschooling and for Christian schools and private schools. But I think anything that we can do to encourage those environments, the better. Things that we can also do aside from grants, or we can make the laws more homeschool friendly. I know, for example, because I've lectured in homeschool environments around the country, the laws are different in different states. North Carolina, fortunately, for whatever reason, has one of the most lenient homeschool laws in the country. Some are not so lenient and require the State Board of Education or other, governmental entities to come in and be a part of some sort of accreditation process. So we can do that as well. I want to see Christian companies and other folks to help homeschools and private Christian schools get more on a footing. But if your kid's going to be in homeschool or at a private school, Christian school, why should you have to pay that tuition and be taxed at the same time to pay for another school? So the tax laws, as long as we have a tax system, and we hope it goes, you and I hope that the income tax goes, but the tax system should be tailored to the extent we're having to deal with it still, to give credit, and I'm talking about tax credits to folks who are taking alternate educational routes, and so they can actually take that off the tax. You shouldn't be taxed twice by having to pay for your kid's education and being taxed somebody else's education. So again, the education must be tailored so that the end result are smaller classrooms. The only way you're going to do that is with more competition. So yes, I would favor the grants. I think they ought to come through the states, not through the federal government. And the individual states should be able to deal with those, because again, smaller is better. The states are closer to what they need individually, but it's something that I want to see happen because I've been involved in the homeschooling movement. 2 of my 3 kids have been homeschooled at least partially. I've lectured homeschools. Homeschooling, when it's done the right way, and my hats are off if you have any homeschool moms or dads out there to you. I know it's a challenge and always easy, but when we're able to pull it off, you're going to get the best result. And why is that? I'm not knocking the public schools or any private schools by saying this, but it really boils down to one-on-one attention with the student. And it boils down to the principle that generally the smaller the classroom, the better the educational experience. So, 50 on 1 is better than 100 on 1, is better than 500 on 1. 3 on 1 is better than all that, and 1 on 1 is even better. So homeschool doing it right it comes into a smaller classroom environment. That's why it works. But it goes back to a point I'm saying we've got to make classrooms smaller across the board, public, private, Christian, and homeschool.
Well, I would like to say something else, son. A friend of mine, Sebring, lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Sebring is from the islands, and she is an American citizen, and a very proud one, okay, at that. And she's voting for you, by the way. But so Sebring, I wanted to bring this to your attention. She was a school teacher, and she taught high school. I forgot what subject she taught, but anyway, she called me one day and said, "I'm giving up the teaching gig." She said, "I've been doing it for years, and I'm giving it up." And I said, "But you love teaching. Why are you giving it up?" And she said that this kid, she had heard the little murmurings out there that the kid was bringing a knife to school, was going to stab another one. Well, you have to know Sebring. I mean, she grew up in the islands, so she's pretty tough. I used to say she probably eat nails and razor blades for breakfast. But anyway, she was tough and still is tough. But she said, "I got to give it up." She said she got in trouble. And I said, "You got in trouble? How was that?" And she said, "I walked over to the student that I heard had a knife and took the knife away from him." It's a wonder she didn't get stabbed. But anyway, she took the knife away from him. Well, he goes and complains to the principal. The principal, of course, the mother comes and cusses everybody. Some of those mothers comes and cusses everybody out, including Sebring, in the school. And lo and behold, Sebring gets called into the office, and she was written up. And she said, "I asked the principal why I would be the one written up. I probably took the knife away and caused somebody not to get killed at the school because I did that." Well, she was invading his privacy.
Don, it's like at the end of the book of Judges, everybody did what was right according to their own eyes. You get it to a place where you're calling right wrong and wrong right. And Democrat philosophy and liberal philosophy has been doing that for years, calling right wrong and wrong right. And what you just described is an example of that. You punish the one who does good, and you praise the evildoer. And it shows from a lack of common sense and a demented ability or lack of ability to show good judgment. But unfortunately, that's where we are. But this goes to woken liberal philosophy. You do good, they want to punish you. You do bad, they want to exhort you. And good for her for standing up for what's right, regardless of being written up. Sometimes, one thing I learned being on the campaign, I get called every name in the book. Sometimes beginning with the 6th letter of the alphabet, blippity this, blippity that, and people don't even know me. They say this about me. Don't have any. Somebody said didn't have the spine. Somebody said I didn't have the spine to go after the medical complex, even though I've sued Savannah River over Biden's unconstitutional vax mandates and took it all the way to the 4th Circuit. I don't have the spine to go after, big pharma, this sort of thing. People will say anything. So to your friend Sebring was her name. Did you get that right?
Sebring.
Sebring, congratulations to you. Sometimes the the condemnation of the left is a badge of honor, and it goes back to what I mentioned in an earlier segment. The fact that every Democrat voted against the big beautiful bill says something, and the fact that Sebring, you were written up, which we know is a joke, just like President Trump being prosecuted was a joke, shows that you've done some good. So thank you for doing what's right, regardless of what the idiot left-wing educational apparatus has decided to brand it as.
Well, she was more concerned with the outcome of the boy and how he turned out. She said what really got her is the mother and the son were walking off, and the mother told the son, "We won."
Of course. Well, yeah. I mean,
what kind of a parent would say that?
I saw some. I don't know if you saw it. There was if you go on Citizen Free Press today, you'll see some film of a shootout in Philadelphia a couple of nights ago. There were a couple of people pushing each other. Next thing you know, bam, bam, bam. There are like multiple guns going off. People just ducking. You could see the guns firing, and that's in the same city that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were signed in all those years ago. I mean, it's part of a moral degradation. It's part of pushing God out of the schools, and it's all part of a governmental takeover. Nobody is taught the difference between right and wrong, and what that mother said to the son is just a selfish, demented thing to say. And if the son learns better, it will probably be on his own by the grace of God, which is possible. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, you're teaching that from generation to generation. It's exacerbating the crime problem we got in this country, and especially in larger cities like Charlotte, like Philadelphia, places like that.
Well, there's a hero out there that I don't know what the woman's name is, but this is during the Ferguson thing where all the kids were out there stealing TVs and shoes. Tennis shoes are always stolen, stuff like that. And this was during that mess. Well, her son is out at another place, and he's the one who's trying to show his rear. Well, the mom comes out there, black woman. She comes out there and grabs him and is like slapping him all over the place, telling him he's not going to turn out that way. The news media turned on that woman like it was nobody's business. And then she just told him, said, "My son's not going to turn out this way." And you could see he was walking off. He was embarrassed. But I would love to know how that boy turned out. She was going to see to it that he was not going to grow. It sounds like something I would have done. But how can we get more discipline? I don't believe in beating the heck out of kids. What I'm saying is we need more discipline in school. Just thinking you were going to get the Board of Education, that big Board of Education some of the principals had, just thinking about that caused me not to do things.
No, I did more than think about the Board of Education. I actually had to visit with it a few times. But it did the trick.
It did the trick.
I think there were like 5 holes in it that the principal had in Plymouth.
Yeah.
But the Democrat politicians are a problem. In North Carolina, the General Assembly just passed a bill to remove all DEI from the public schools, and the Democrat governor vetoed that bill. Now, whether they'll be able to override that or not, I don't know. But they're pushing this demented philosophy. The left is. All we can do is continue to speak out against it and hope we can get enough votes to get that veto overridden. But, you're dealing with a liberal philosophy of it's all about me, and I have no personal responsibility, and it's everybody else's fault. That is causing this, just like the mother saying we won. Give me a break. What you did is you probably have pushed your son closer to maybe even getting shot and killed one day by your lack of responsibility and your parental skills. So, but you just keep speaking out, Donna. That's all we can do is speak out and pray, but we got to understand, as I tell folks all the time, we are still, President Trump says this is a golden age. He's right in some ways. It will be a golden age as long as he's in office and the Democrats don't take control of Congress. So it might be for 2 years. It might be for 4 years. But I can tell you they are right under the surface, and the examples that you just gave are still continue to happen. They're still using, communist judges to thwart the Constitution. They're still trying to push, DEI, or as they say in some quarters, DIE, because that is what it needs to happen to it. But we got to keep fighting the battle. And we got to keep talking about what's right. We got to talk about biblical principles. We got to talk about individual responsibility. And we got, and then it goes back to a point that you made earlier when you started the segment about the mayor in Alabama and his wife, and they're going woke and crazy. Well, whoever is in that town needs to deal with that race. And not just that, but you got to deal with what's going on in your local school system too. You got to put conservatives on that school board, not liberals, conservatives. And because the liberals are they're going to want this stuff. They're going to want this DEI in here. This stuff's got to be killed and monitored at every level. Even if the North Carolina General Assembly is able to override Stein's veto on DEI, if the Mecklenburg County Public Schools and liberals in these big counties continue to push the garbage, they will push it despite the law. Therefore, it's important for everybody to understand. Yes, I'm running for the U.S. Senate, okay, but local control. First of all, if you're a member of the town council or a county commission or a local school board, you're going to catch more flack than a member of the U.S. Senate, at least from your neighbors and the people you know. The flack that I catch even as a candidate from most people that I don't know, calling me this, calling me that, saying I don't have backbone to go after Big Pharma, which I laughed at since I've already done it.
I've got to laugh at that one. Can I spend just 1 minute? Okay, I know you. There. I bet you eat razor blades and nails for breakfast. For goodness sakes, whoever said that has no clue in their head what you are like.
Of course,
okay.
It just comes to the territory. But if you're if you're serving locally, you're going to catch fire-breathing dragons from people that you're going to see at Harris Teeter or a Food Line or whatever grocery store you do. Mm-hmm. In some ways, the local service is even harder. It's a lot more expensive to run for the Senate or run for the Congress. The money is out of control. And it's not inexpensive to run locally, but that's where the rubber meets the road. Local governance is just as important, and I would say more important than national governance, because that's the way the founders set it up. They set it up for local control. And the federal government was simply to provide a national defense, promote interstate commerce. It really boils down to all that. And you've got federal laws, which in some case supersede state laws. But the founders wanted everything done locally. That's where freedom is. So again, I want to encourage those folks in that little town in Alabama, and wherever you're listening, get involved with a local school board. Run for it. If you're a conservative, run for city council. Run for mayor. Run for these offices which are going to affect your daily life. And my former paralegal, I should say, God bless her, she's gone to greener things in some ways, but she was battling the Charlotte Mecklenburg School Board over its bathroom choices, and went down and spoke against them and wound up being called to homeschool as a result of that. But stay in the fight. We got to have salt and light in the fight at the local level.
And that's what you're doing. And a lot of folks would say, why is Don Brown even running for U.S. Senate? Because he's got a successful business. Well, I wanted to mention this to you. He has a successful business. Is that not a good reason to go ahead and vote for him? That, and he eats razor blades and nails for breakfast.
I like a little hot sauce in my razor blades, by the way.
So we're going to have to go. Less than a minute left in this segment. What do you want to tell folks, and how can they get in contact with you if they would like to volunteer or maybe donate?
Thank you. Yes, please go to our website, brown4nc.com. Brown, BROWNFORNC.com. When you get to brown4nc.com, there's a donate page. Please click. Help us any way you can. We raise the money. We'll win the race. We win the race. We're going to bring red-hot conservative firebrand principles to the floor of the United States Senate like probably has never been seen before. So here's an opportunity to do that. Also, give us feedback. We need help with the campaign. Whether you're in North Carolina or not, we take help from all over the country. Love to hear from you. brown4nc.com.
There you go. You know something? You got to vote for Don Brown. You just gotta. If you really want integrity back, you've got to vote for Don Brown. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.